जादू मंतर जादू मंतर जादू मंतर You are going into the future.
You talking to me?
They always be these sheep clothing.
என் பேர் மாணிக்கம். எனக்கு இன்னொரு பேர் இருக்கு.
Talking to me?
Queen is dead. Hello. Welcome to today's podcast and our final episode of the Halloween month and sort of final episode even for Kubrick, which we have been essentially doing since July. Like July and entirety of
final
August.
because he's not going to make any more movies.
No, we have to discuss some of his noirs. As you can hear, we have a returning snarky guest in Varun, who has appeared plenty of times and is here again to throw shade on Kubrick.
Yeah.
And I'm joined also by Arijit, who's returning very swiftly after the horror catch-up episode. So it's great that we don't have Arijit, what, a year and a half gap like we had last time?
I think so. Yeah.
We were supposed to have about 3 more people in this panel, all of them who dropped out for various reasons.
They met Jack Torrance's axe.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's violent visions of what you want those people to go through. That's like chup essentially, right? But that's probably the treatment you deserve.
Single-handedly derailed the IQ
Episode.
of this episode.
Anyways,
Brought
no,
it down
okay.
significantly.
No, I'll edit this bit out.
You're not editing it. You're not editing it. मैं पोल खोल
Anyways, we are here to talk about Stanley Kubrick's much talked about and probably the most popular or one of the most popular horror films of all time, The Shining, released in 1980. And we are talking about the US version in particular, which is 144 minutes long, as opposed to the European version, which is 119 minutes long. When we talk about the US version, I'll fill in the gaps a little bit about why we are talking about the US version and why I forced Varun to watch the US version, as opposed to the European version, which he had in his hands.
Yeah.
So I'll expand upon that. But for whoever's not familiar with The Shining, which basically is, I think, no one, I will still say that this, of course, is directed by Kubrick, written by him and Diane Johnson. Diane Johnson is a novelist whose novel Kubrick was supposed to adapt, but chose not to adapt because of a particular first-person point of view, which he thought was not translatable on screen. And the reason he wanted to collaborate with her on The Shining's writing is, his pitch to her was, it's easier to adapt a book which is a lesser literary work than your book, which I think is quite funny. And that's why they worked together to adapt Stephen King's The Shining, which was released, 2 years before the film was released in 1980? 3 years before, 1977,
Yeah.
which Varun has read in totality, and Arijit has read half of it, right?
Half of it, yeah.
And yeah, as per my dictum, I've not, because I don't read books ever apparently. So
You just don't read.
no, all this info that you got about Diane Johnson, I read. I didn't just make out of like thin hair. Okay.
Nobody came and
Anyways.
told you.
Yeah, she came and told. Yeah, exactly. Anyways, it's shot by John Alcott, who was the cinematographer for Barry Lyndon also, which is the film preceding this. If you want to hear us talk about that, we have talked about it in the period pieces episode, essentially, of Kubrick's work. It's the DOP is John Alcott, but there's, of course, as usual, differences with him and Kubrick. So other people stepped in to shoot the film. One of them is Douglas Millstone, and the other one, Varun, which you had noted down, and
Garrett Brown,
who's also
the
one
inventor of the Steadicam.
which is a big thing about The Shining because it's the first film to use it so extensively also, right?
Yeah.
So
Not
yeah,
the first film to use it. There were a bunch of films.
First
that
film,
came
I
out
think, is Rocky.
in
Rocky,
76 that used
Okay.
it. Yeah.
so no, but I think this sort of made it such a big thing
Yeah,
because of the way it's used
I
or
mean,
utilized in The
after
Shining.
Kubrick, if anybody has used the Steadicam as much or more, it's Neeraj Pandey.
There are better examples, but okay.
We're talking about quantity of footage
Quantity
shots.
also. You've not watched Terrence Malick enough, but okay. Anyways, editor is Ray Lovejoy. And the composers are Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkind. The score, I think, is most people recognize the opening credits cut score, of course. So all that sort of the basic info on the film. It stars Jack Nicholson as Jack Torrance, Shelley Duvall as Wendy Torrance, Danny Lloyd as Danny Doc Torrance, and Scatman Crothers as Dick Halloran. Those are the four main sort of principal cast of the film. And then there's
Yeah.
some amazing supporting turns by people like Philip Stone as Brady, and Joe Turkel, I think, as the bartender Lloyd. Those are the sort of principal sort of people in the film. The film itself is about, I've taken two descriptions here essentially. One of them is the plots of the novel, and one of them is the film ka interpretation as I've structured it from the novel ka plot. You guys who have read the novel can please correct me if I'm wrong, but our
We
objective
will,
with this,
don't worry.
yeah, I know that, but our objective with this episode is primarily to talk about everything to do with The Shining, also talk about some of the theories which sort of circulate around the film about what it is about, because there's so many, and then dip a little bit into something like Doctor Sleep by Mike Flanagan also. So if you've listened to our 2001 A Space Odyssey episode, it follows a similar format where we will be going in depth talking about the film and then talking about a bunch of extra stuff which is related to the film. Anyways, for people who are not familiar with the plot of the novel, the Stephen King novel is Jack Torrance, an ex-teacher and aspiring writer, accepts a job as the winter caretaker at the Overlook Hotel, set high in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, despite the violence that was part of the hotel's history and the cabin fever that struck its previous caretakers. Jack's wife Wendy and son Danny accompany him to the isolated hotel. Because of his ability to shine, his capacity to see events in the past and future, Danny fears the hotel. After several weeks, Jack's mental state deteriorates and he experiences delusions, including the statuary sculptures of the maze garden coming to life, leading him to seek to kill his family. That's the book. And in the book's final section, whatever is written here, of course, this whole episode is going to be spoilers, is that the hotel explodes. Like the boiler room
Yeah.
explodes and killing Jack Torrance, but not the other two sort of survive, right? Wendy and the son survive.
As does Halloran.
As does Halloran. Okay. So only, okay, fine. So that's
Sorry,
the,
we've actually ruined the book for Arijit, who's still reading it.
No,
I
that's
thought,
okay. That's okay. No problem.
sorry, Arijit. I thought you knew
No,
what the difference is on in the.
oh, that's okay. That's
My
okay. Not a
fault. Are
problem.
you sure?
Yeah.
I
Because see,
apologize
no,
wholeheartedly. I
that's
did
okay.
not
That's
know
okay.
this.
I am not
Uh,
really sensitive about
Spoilers.
so-called spoilers. Yeah.
Yeah,
Some of my
got it.
friends are, but
So
I'm not. Yeah.
yeah, but so this is the novel itself. The film, I think, plot I think of the film is almost exactly the same in many ways. Key
Yeah.
difference I think for me is the transition from normal to crazy in Jack's state of mind. The film, especially Nicholson's performance, situates him very much from the get-go as a man barely able to control or take control of himself.
Yeah.
So extra emphasis for me is placed on his initial decision to move to the hotel in the first place. So the
Yeah.
Overlook Hotel for me in the film becomes a refuge for him more than anything else to justify his decision essentially to kill his family. So
Okay.
it's almost a meeting of, and this is taken from the biography, sorry, of Kubrick, which a lot of has been referenced repeatedly in our Kubrick episodes. Um, so it's a meeting of the supernatural and the psychological in the film, especially. I don't know how much of that is a part of the novel, but
Mm.
I'm happy for you guys to expand before we sort of delve into the film piece by piece, sequence by
So
sequence.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll answer that as briefly as possible.
Yeah.
It's that Jack Torrance in the book is a man on the mend.
Yeah.
He has been an
Mhm.
alcoholic.
Yeah.
He has been an absent father and an absent husband, and he
Yeah.
has been a violent father as well. And
Mhm.
he's now trying to better himself in order to provide for his child and for his wife.
Yeah.
the hotel unfortunately catches hold of him, and once he moves there,
Mhm.
and his state deteriorates because of cabin fever,
Yeah,
because of the loneliness, because the wife and child have each other, and the child of
sure.
course has imaginary friends,
Yes.
but he has only his failures and everything else that bogs him down,
Yeah.
and eventually lands him in this pit of complete sort of, it's like he's hit ground zero.
Yeah.
And from that is where the sort of villain arc, if you want to call it that,
Sure.
begins. I don't agree with uh, what the internet tries to say, in that he's the antagonist of the Shining.
Hmm.
He's very much one of the two principal characters. I would say
Hmm.
Wendy is actually working as a character in support of both Danny and Jack,
Sure.
but Jack is essentially a man trying to get better,
Yes.
and he just cannot. And
Hmm.
the book is a lot more about alcoholism and about
Yes.
parenting, and though it is also a horror novel
Yeah.
primarily,
Yeah.
it does focus on those themes a lot, and they are almost absent from the film in the same sense.
Okay.
They're there, but like in much lesser measure.
Sure. Arijit, your thoughts on the novel, if there are many? I know you're halfway through it
No,
only.
I
So.
think he pretty much summed it up. I would just like to quote this thing that I think I was telling you the other day, which I really like,
Mm-hmm.
that Stephen King writes in the introduction of the book.
Mm-hmm.
That for him, a killer motivated to his crimes by supernatural forces was, almost comforting once he got below the surface thrills provided by any halfway competent ghost story. So for him,
Sure.
a killer that might be doing it because of childhood abuse as well as ghostly forces, that to him genuinely seemed disturbing, which is why he added the whole backstory of Jack Torrance. And because in the book we get that context of how Jack himself is abusive, and
Yes.
he's alcoholic, and he has these problems. And
Mm-hmm.
because when the book is starting, he doesn't have a job, which is why he's going to the hotel.
Hmm.
And then it's explained that why he doesn't have the job, because
Sure.
yeah, so because of his violent nature. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that makes it more scary. But for me,
Hmm.
like now that I'm reading the book, and always while the film was there, the
Hmm.
more scary stuff was the hotel, the Overlook Hotel, and I'm more interested in its past residents and the
Sure.
events
Yeah.
that
So
happened and all
is
that.
this, can I ask you, is this extra? So how much of a character is the Overlook in the book? Because it's, I think one of the, actually, I said it wrongly. The one of the principal characters in the movie is definitely the Overlook. That's,
I think the Overlook is more a character in the book.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
at
Interesting.
least to me.
Sure. So as I
Then
don't
again,
know,
a book, let's be very clear, a
of
book
course.
allows for a lot more
Yes.
descriptive and an explanation of certain things.
Yes,
It
of course.
don't think I would ever call Stephen King's writing lyrical.
Hmm.
Uh, a film has its limitations in terms of what can you actually build, and this
Sure.
is 1980. Even with Kubrick's love for tech, he didn't have modern CGI at his beck and call to sort of
Yeah.
give you a grand hotel in
Hmm.
the
I mean, they
grandest of.
built it from the ground up.
Yeah,
So,
they did.
and they
So,
took inspiration from a
but
lot of real life models and
yeah,
then, of course, built it up
but
in
there is a limit
street.
in film. There is a limit up to
Sure.
what you,
Okay.
that clarity should be there.
Sure. So, you're saying that in the novel, there's a sort of leap of imagination, I suppose, which wasn't able to
Yeah,
be translated or wasn't even chosen to be translated
it
in
wasn't
the.
chosen to be translated.
Sure.
The book is far
Much
more
more fantastical.
it's not fantastical per se.
Hmm.
It's both more human and more supernatural.
Supernatural, that's
Interesting.
right.
The
Yeah.
Okay.
the film hems closer to the human line, but also
Hmm.
abandons a lot of what makes the book a good piece of sort of human drama.
Sure. So, as you might have garnered by the descriptions of our things about the film and book, I just have to clarify, I suppose, that Arijit, you are a big time Shining fan, right? Like the movie fan.
Yeah, 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 totally.
Yeah. I'm a recent convert. I would never liked The Shining that much till about my recent viewing, like in about 2 months back. So I've always held the view that The Shining never works for me as a film, the Kubrick version. And just 2 months back, I saw it and I thought it worked plenty for me. And I just rewatched it today and it still worked plenty for me. Varun is has rewatched it yesterday, and it still doesn't
Yeah.
work for him much at all,
More
right?
like today, early in the morning.
Okay, early
Like,
today. So
I
he,
first watched it like 9 years ago. So
yeah.
I thought, okay, maybe something will have changed. And
Hmm.
definitely, I think I'm better positioned and more cinema literate today to appreciate some of the filmmaking.
Sure.
But
It didn't
uh,
work for you on a human sort of emotional level also, right?
no, it doesn't work for me as on a screenplay level either. It doesn't.
Sure.
The performances also are a bit.
Which
I
I think is
am
the big make or
big
break, I feel, for
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
people. So,
And
right.
the
So,
direction is kind of like, in terms of how he directs the elements versus how he directs the actors, I think there's
hmm,
a big sort of gap
sure.
over there.
So we will hopefully have a very fruitful civil discussion about what is good about some of us love about the film and some
Yeah.
of us don't. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think we'll like I we did with 2001. We'll go sequence by sequence essentially from for The Shining, because it's kind of conveniently divided into about 11 pieces, like intertitles, of course, of varying
Right.
lengths. So yeah, I mean, we can begin talking about the film itself. So we open, of course, with the opening credits, which are fairly iconic. What do you
Yeah.
guys think
Kubrick
of?
I don't know
airbrushing
why
his name
he
in the
chose that
clouds.
font color though.
Yeah, that font color stands out. I know.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I'm
what were
not.
you saying, Arijit?
They're saying Kubrick airbrushing his name in the clouds.
Oh no,
Yeah.
please no. That's the conspiracy stuff. Like, because this film is so, and we can, like, talk about all that once, since we are going
I'm
through the
sorry.
film. There's conspiracy theories about the opening shot
I
having,
find that hilarious. I mean,
it's
whoever came up with
hilarious.
that, it's like,
Yes.
what was that
What
person
is this theory?
thinking?
I've not heard of it.
This one's harder to find, okay? And you have to know what Stanley Kubrick looked like during the making of The Shining to know this one. But if you go to the opening credits and you pan the frame, you go through the frames right after it says directed by Stanley Kubrick. As soon as his name passes off the frame, stop, and you will see that the clouds have Stanley Kubrick airbrushed into them, his face, with the beard and the wild hair and the whole thing. I know this one's a little harder to find, and I will have to Photoshop this one to show people it. But there is definitely a photograph of Stanley Kubrick in one frame, airbrushed in to the clouds.
Even if you can, why would that even matter for this film? To me, it's just like, firstly, I don't think I know he's self-absorbed and narcissistic a little bit. Every filmmaker is, but like this much, to even I don't think he is. So, anyways,
He's a
that's
lot. He's a lot more self-absorbed and narcissistic than most filmmakers, though.
yeah, but it has its rewards. Let's just say that in some cases. In some cases, it doesn't. We will talk about that also in the case of The Shining. But anyways, opening credits, guys. What do you guys think? I think it's one of the best things of the film. But like that's like I remembered that even I liked this even when I didn't like The Shining. I
Yeah,
think.
same.
So it's just so atmospheric. I mean, I love just the camera going a bit wild. It's just,
Yeah.
going everywhere. It's like there's illogical movements to it,
And you know
essentially.
what? It actually builds up the idea of how isolated this place really is
Yes.
by giving you such a long sort of, helicopter chase of a car, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
And that too, such an innocuous car, Beetle, I think it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
There's a lot of other cars I noticed this time.
yeah,
Like they are just stranded there. I was just like, what is like? There's that eeriness to that
yeah.
also. But like,
But
and
the
the score.
remoteness of the hotel is really sort of set through the credits,
Yes.
through the opening credits.
Yeah. No, but as you mentioned, the font color is
It's very
distracting.
distracting.
But it's okay. But anyways, the score I think is wonderful in this, wonderful as in wonderfully eerie. One of the very good sort of intros to a film, which I think a lot of early 70s, 80s works, and this sort of comes during that time too.
Think of,
Uh,
yeah, even Taxi Driver has that kind of,
Wonderful
sort of,
opening.
though it's just one. I think it's just one.
Yeah, yeah.
frame.
It's I've written a paper on this, so I know this.
You've written a
It's
paper on that one frame.
no, I've written a paper on Taxi Driver, but I
Acha.
mentioned the one frame of
Yeah,
Taxi
credits.
Driver where essentially it tells you a lot of the story and whatever, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. Anyways, first section, the interview, which is the setup for me. Like
Yeah.
this and the closing day both are sort of setups for me. So basically, 34 minutes of the film for me is setup.
Yeah, it's just an introduction. Like,
Yeah. What do you guys think of this interview stuff? Again, there's lots of theories around all this stuff, but Arijit, you can go first if you
Yeah.
want.
This interview stuff, I think, yeah, so it pretty much sets it up. But in the film, I mean, before I was like, okay, this is good and all. But now
Hmm.
that I read the book, I'm
Mhm.
not a big fan of that interview scene because
Okay.
because in the book it's like this guy Ullman.
Yeah, Stuart Ullman is
Yeah,
a
he
person.
really
Yeah.
doesn't want to give him the job. He doesn't really. He's constantly asking this and that, and he's
Okay.
really reluctant
So he's
because
not
there.
a fan of Jack as a
No,
person.
he's not, and because
Okay.
and he's aware, informed of Jack's past, it seems,
Sure.
and he cites these past incidents in the hotel, and
Yeah.
he says, this happened, that happened.
Yeah.
He's still trying to hide a lot of stuff because a lot of stuff
Sure.
happened under his watch.
Yeah.
So that to me sets it up much better in the
Okay.
book. But I
Hmm.
understand Kubrick's whole treatment in the now I feel the film's intro scene kinds of tones down. I mean it's like
Hmm.
okayish, and which I think the point Varun made sort of validates because the performances really seem sort of loose in that sense because it
Hmm.
doesn't really give much as
Yeah.
compared to how it's supposed to be. Usually, Kubrick films they have their standardized, structured performances.
Yes.
That really doesn't, yeah, work much in that
Sure.
sense.
Interesting, because I think and Varun go after this, of course. I find this is where I basically watch the American and the European version, right? The European version has a part of the scene in the American version that's totally cut out, and I think it to very much to the detriment of the film. So, anyways, the Jack Nicholson performance, which we will repeatedly talk about, because it's something that will not work at all for someone and will work at like gangbusters for someone else. But this performance like is nuts. Like it's gonzo from the beginning for me. Like the way he reacts to Stuart Ullman, and like is like when Stuart Ullman asks him where he's basically like, what do you think your family will think, like after he tells him the story of what happened in this place? He's like,
They'll love it.
and they love it. He says in a way which he has like a wide-eyed grin to
Grin,
this
yeah.
thing, and I was just like, there's such a like there's nothing normal about him. Like it doesn't feel like he's normal at all. Like to me it's like that whole thing, right, where someone's an alcoholic and this sort of comes back later but is trying and particularly failing to be sober. Like that sort of comes across in the performance to me in this section, which is why I think it's interesting when the film later goes off the rails, how that pitch of the performance contrasts or doesn't contrast with this. So like to me that's like very interesting in the opening, but to me the more interesting thing than Jack stuff is the stuff with Wendy and Danny, because this essentially sets both those characters up also, because it's intercut essentially
Yeah,
with
they're going with
them at the
Halloran.
home. Yeah.
Yeah,
So he has the shining moment, I think Danny does,
then does,
where
yeah.
he's talking to Tony, and they're talking about essentially it establishes that Danny is able to see or sense future or past stuff better than sort of anyone around him. But and the stuff that's cut from the European version is the stuff with the psychologist, essentially, where the psychologist comes to visit, and Wendy talks to the psychologist about Danny's problem. Like the he faints after having this vision of the Overlook Hotel, where you see the popular blood flowing from the elevators. Uh,
blood which Kubrick lied and called rust in, I think, one of his explanations to the censors apparently was
what did
that
he call it?
he said it's rusted water. It's, because they were like, you can't have so much blood. He's like, it's not blood.
Oh, amazing. Anyways, yeah, you see that image. I think that's the main image he sees, and
Yeah.
then he faints. And then after that is this very somber and sober discussion, I think, about this whole thing where the psychologist asks Wendy, like when did Tony appear, essentially his imaginary friend, and she's like somewhere around the time where Jack basically physically assaulted him in
Yeah.
a. And what I love about this scene, and I will continuously sing the praises of Shelley Duvall's performance, because I think it's gone from not working for me to working fully for me.
Yeah.
It's just her trying to convince herself in this sequence that
It was just one of those things, purely an accident. My husband had been drinking, and he came home about 3 hours late. So he wasn't exactly in the greatest mood that night. And, well, Danny had scattered some of his school papers all over the room, and my husband grabbed his arm, to pull him away from him. It's just the sort of thing you do 100 times with a child, in the park or in the streets. But on this particular occasion, my husband just used too much strength, and he injured Danny's arm.
The I can fix him moment.
not even I can fix him, but making excuses for him.
Yeah.
I don't think it's more that she can fix him, but it's more just that
I mean, she is
she
convinced on
thinks,
some level that hanging out with her will and hanging out with the kid will kind of fix him on
yeah,
some
like
level.
kind of ignoring, turning a blind eye essentially to
Yeah.
maybe the obvious horror of that man, which
Yeah.
we see actually, I think, a little bit because he is so cranked up with his performance. Nicholson
Yeah.
is. This is excised from the film, and I think it like from the European version.
Yeah.
And I think it totally does a disservice to Wendy's character, which I think is one of the emotional hearts of the film for me, at least. So, that's a big sort of thing for me in this scene, which works. But yeah, Varun,
Right.
you were saying.
No, to me, I think the moment I remember, I must have been in the 11th grade. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Jack Nicholson. I have not watched much of his work at that point.
Yeah.
I think I had only watched The Departed actually. And I was like,
Oh.
why does he feel like a younger version of that character?
Hmm.
Hyped up
Yeah.
with that Joker grin on his face, which
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
become patent.
He's known for loud acting a lot also.
Sure, but
Hmm.
look at him in something like Reds, which happened, I think, the year after The Shining.
No,
Directed by
this
Warren
is,
Beatty.
I'm 100% sure this is a director's thing also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because naturally, right? Kubrick being such a
Control
freak, he
Yeah.
would have been like, dude, stop this nonsense.
But
I want to-
no, but he's throughout his career, a lot of his films are dominated by exaggerated performances. He doesn't always go
Okay.
for naturalism. That's
Right.
not his thing.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, most prominently, probably Strange Love.
Strange
right?
Love, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the whole tone of the film. Over here,
Yeah.
the tone of the performances and the film itself are an imbalance,
Okay.
to me at least.
Hmm.
And I was like, this dude is off his rocker from the get-go,
Yes.
which is my principal problem with the film, that
Yes.
it doesn't attempt to even I feel like if you're adapting something and that character is so rich on paper,
Yeah.
you're better off taking that version
Hmm.
for the simple reason that it serves you better.
Hmm. Varun is coughing. Yes.
And Nicholson's just like, oh, I'm a weird dude who's looking to do weird shit to his family.
Hmm.
He's just got that vibe going.
Yeah, he's not normal. Like,
Yeah,
there's
he
nothing
isn't.
normal about that performance.
Again, then I feel the horror of the film then gets diluted from
Hmm.
whatever perspective you look at it.
Mhm.
What I like though is how slimily Ullman is trying to sell the hotel to him. Like,
Hmm.
you'll really like it, and this, that, and the other. And
Yeah.
then he's like, oh, but by the way,
Yes.
this dude took an axe to his wife and children,
Yes.
and then a shotgun to his own face.
Yeah.
But hey, you with a
And he
4-year-old
says
are
it like
driving-
laugh, like he's laughing.
Yeah,
while
he's
saying
laughing
whatever,
throughout, right? And there's you can see his colleague, Bill. I think
Yes, he's
called.
just sitting there. I
He's
was
just sitting
like,
there watching this dude. And
I was like, I think he was one. There's one medium close up of his. I'm like, is he just
Yeah.
thinking? Why is he even telling him about this
Yeah.
or whatever? He
either
does one
that
shot
or is
like
he like, should I interrupt and tell this guy the truth?
that. Yeah.
Right? And I like that a bit, but aside from that, I think I enjoyed the interaction between I don't know whether she was a psychologist or just a regular pediatrician, like a
Okay.
doctor, whatever.
Mm.
But I like that bit because what it does is it explains the background of the characters very quickly,
Yeah.
and then you're moving forward,
Yeah. Yeah, and
ideally into the next
I
movie
also
based.
think, at least to me, it not justifies, but like at least I can comprehend some of Nicholson's ticks. Like to me,
Right.
without that info, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like I'm just like in my head, I'm like, I can't, his
Yeah.
performance is at such a tonality that I'm just like a bit, I guess,
Take a
just
dude,
distracted.
take a step back type.
I'm just
You
like,
want to
also I've
bring that
seen him
pace.
in give such a natural performance in something like, well, different movie totally, like The Passenger by Antonioni. I was just like, wow, this is like some other pitch. Anyways, next scene is the whole establishing the hotel,
The
which I think
hotel.
is
Yeah.
quite a lovely, whatever lovely means, scene. It's like the closing day of the hotel,
Yeah.
and then you see them coming in the car
And
again, and then
you can notice Jack's brittleness in the car
oh yeah,
itself,
I love
right?
it.
And
Yeah,
I enjoyed that bit of detailing. Like he may just be an impatient father,
yeah,
but given what Nicholson proceeds to do with the role
yeah,
and what Kubrick lets him do to the role,
yeah,
I'm like, good heavens, that would have been one scene of him being short with the kid, and
yeah.
then trying to be
There
make
is
up
one
for it.
scene where he tries to be somewhat normal with the kid later on, I think.
Like when he's like sitting up in bed, that
Yeah,
scene.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
By
the
then,
closest.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
bit of like, okay, this is coming in very half-heartedly almost.
Sure.
But yeah,
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, I enjoyed
I
the
like the whole I know all about cannibals because I
yeah
saw it on the television. I was
television.
Television.
like,
Yeah.
like what a wonderful thing to say. And
But
then he's
that's
also
such a
like,
childlike thing, right? That I know everything about this because I watched one Discovery Channel Gesapeta documentary.
yeah.
Like
I think
my
they also
my
talk
dad used to
about
make us watch Banged Up Abroad. So my sister and I thought that we would be super sorted if we were ever going abroad because we know what not to do. Basically, don't buy drugs in a
right, but no, Arijit, you were saying something. I cut you
No,
off.
so it's a silly thing, but
Hmm.
since like you were watching it with like notes and stuff, did you
Hmm.
actually notice Jack Nicholson's tie having that whole maze
yeah.
drawn on it?
But it's just a
Yes,
knitted tie. I thought,
yes, yes, yes.
that's how I
Yeah.
said what I thought to myself. It's just a green knitted tie.
No, but I mean, it's the whole thing. The
No, but
details in
so
Kubrick stuff is the main thing, right? That's the whole thing
yeah,
people
but
Sure.
have
how
sort of
does
picked
that
apart.
tie to the main narrative is my question because I know of these theories and all,
Yeah,
but for me, like Kubrick couldn't do it without reason. So what would be
sure.
the reason of actually doing it?
The
I
maze of the
mean,
hotel on the tie, you said?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
mean,
think it's,
why?
again, to me, a lot of the film plays out as him essentially. He says literally at one point in time that when I first went to the Overlook, it felt like I'd always been there, right? It's sort of that
Yeah.
sentiment that this is a place or institution, I think. Overlook is an institution essentially, which to me at least, like, takes away all the sense of responsibility and burden he feels with his family. Like to me, this is
Okay.
essentially him, a story of a, well, quote unquote white man, because that's literally another dialogue which is said in the film, where it's
Yeah.
like he wants to blame everyone or everything for his failures in life. To me,
Right.
it's as critical about a man, which all of Kubrick's films are very critical about men. They are all filled with idiots in some ways, like
Mhm.
silly men
Was
Yeah,
essentially.
that
yeah.
was that you think in any way an indication of some sort of self hatred?
Might be, who knows? No, but I mean, but all of his films do have a character or main characters
Right.
who
Right.
generally go through the whole film basically getting pushed around. And in some
Yeah.
senses, he gets pushed around in this film by the Overlook Hotel. Like he wants to lose his sense of responsibility, but he wants to
Right.
gain the control that the Overlook Hotel is giving to him of killing. It's basically justification. It's like, I want to kill my family, and this institution, supernatural institution in some ways, of quote
Yeah.
unquote America, if you want to connect it to the whole Native American genocide and everything, which I think is one of the more fruitful theories about the film. To
Hmm.
me, it's again, violence is something which is an impulse in him. because of whatever these things are. And that everything, I guess the tie, even like, an object connects him to something like that institution. Like I think that institution of violence, of misogyny, of racism, all three of them are there in some ways. And all three of them come across in one particular, I think the scariest scene in the film later on we'll discuss the with Brady in the bathroom. But anyways, sorry, Ajit, I don't know if I've answered your question,
No,
but
I
this
think
sort
yeah.
of
So actually, this thing is
circular.
also partly in the book, I think, because where
Okay.
it says like, we create these stories because sometimes we
Self-deception, no?
yeah, sort of, because we
Uh,
need to create unreal monsters and boogies to stand in for all the things that we fear
yeah,
in our lives,
yeah.
So I think you make a valid point. I was just wondering why it would be, because when I'd watched the film back, I mean, initially,
Hmm.
and then all these, you find it in the internet, you find it in YouTube, all these theories, and I was like, why
Yeah,
would that happen? I mean,
yeah,
it's fun, but now that
yeah,
you
yeah.
say it, I think it has a valid point, because yes, it connects, because even in the last
The
scene,
last
we
shot is
shouldn't,
there,
yeah,
no?
we shouldn't come to that now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, we'll come to
Yeah.
that later.
No, no, but
Anyway,
it connects only. So it's not like we are not doing spoilers, but yeah, the last shot of the film connects directly to something like
connects
this.
directly to that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No, but I really like the production design of the hotel. I think it's like
Yeah,
yeah.
wonderfully
It's crazy good.
that and the
expansive,
cinematography are probably the
mazy.
most standout elements of the
So
film.
good, the
Yeah.
substance borrowed it like just like that,
Yes, the
seamlessly.
substance properly took the bathroom design, especially, and the carpet design, and plastered it
Okay,
directly
I've
onto.
only seen trailers of that Demi Moore
Yeah,
film.
even in the trailer, I think there's one
Mother
instance where it's
quality.
basically just cheap, like it's literally the bathroom from The Shining in the substance.
Imagine
But
that note for like the production design, Shining
hundred
bathroom.
percent that was the note.
Pretty sure, pretty
Hundred
sure.
percent that was the note. But anyways, no, I think again there's so many places in the hotel. Like there's like the Colorado room, which I think is one of the main places where the action takes place. The Gold Room, which another main place. The Hedge, the maze, wherever that sort of area is. I think they go through most of the places, and then we see the Halloran and Danny interaction, which I've
Mhm.
always felt is a bit too long. But it also does a good job of establishing what The Shining really is.
Shining
Which,
is,
but do
yeah.
you still understand what The Shining is? Like it's just a
I feel it's
telepathic
sort
sort of
of, yeah, sort
connection.
of
I don't know if it's
extra
telepathic
sensory
also. Yeah, it's
perception,
just
sort
extra
of,
sensory perception is a better
sort
Okay,
word.
of.
okay,
Largely because
and
it's not only telepathy, right? He can
sure,
telepathically communicate with someone like Halloran, but
yeah,
he can also get these visions of the past and
yeah.
stuff like that.
And there's a lot of like neat setups in this section. Like there's the what's in room 237. That's
Yeah,
I think
don't go
set
in
up in
there.
this dialogue.
Yeah.
Then even when they're venturing throughout the
Kitchen, the
uh,
freezer.
kitchen, the freezer is there. Then there's the snow cat, the thing
Yeah,
which gets dismantled later on. Then there's the maze. I don't think they
yeah,
go inside it now. They go inside it later. But yeah, most of the stuff here I think is like just immersing
yeah.
you inside in the hotel, and then there's like pointed lines of dialogue that this is built on Indian burial ground, which I think is
Very
just
long.
like. And then there's this, and I think there's he says Stuart Ullman says to Wendy and Dan and Jack that all the best people lived here or something like that, with which I thought was again
Yeah,
very pointed in terms of the whole
all the
history of the
right kind
hotel.
of people.
All the right kind of popular white, I suppose, people lived here. I think that's the implication. I don't know if I'm drawing too much on the race angle of it, but I think there's pointed stuff here in terms of how
Yeah,
that
because
works.
it's the race angle is also pretty subdued in the film.
Yeah.
Halloran isn't treated
He has The
evidently
Shining.
poorly.
Hmm.
No, but he's not differentiated by other characters in any significant way.
Well, he's
Except
called the
like,
N word.
yeah, but that's by the ghosts. I'm talking about the living people.
And Jack later on.
Jack is a fucking idiot by then.
He
I
was an
mean,
idiot before, but
before
yes.
also, but like I'm talking about in that moment,
Sure.
right?
Like not overtly as
Overtly,
opposed to,
but
yes.
it tells you of, oh, these people are happy to have a black head chef,
Sure.
but there is still a streak of racism within,
Yes, of
which I
course.
suppose could be said of most people, really.
Yes. Yeah. Like yes. Like subtle forms of what is it
Yeah,
called? Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, so this is that section. Then there's the whole deterioration section, essentially, basically where Jack Nicholson becomes even more Jack Nicholson, I suppose, right? So this is
And he's spending time writing.
yes,
Yeah.
all what's the thing? What's
All
the
work
right
and
thing?
no play
All
makes
work and
Jack
no
a dull
play.
boy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, but this is
Apparently,
this.
that was a scene that was a frame that had to be shot multiple times because Kubrick was like, "Oh, they're going to release this in French and Italian and German, so these are high."
Okay.
I'm like, dude, you're not making a French or Italian or German film. Calm down.
Anyways, but no, this section is like very fragmented, like in terms of how it charts it. Like there's one, two, three, four, five like chapter breaks in the span of like 20 minutes or something, which I thought was
Okay.
like fascinating. Like, it's
Yeah.
a month later happens where we basically establish what the
We
characters
see
are
for the
like.
first time that Jack snipes at Wendy when
Well,
she
yeah,
walks
like
into
in a
that room.
subtle way, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not
It's
so
not
subtle, I think.
necessarily subtle. He
Yeah,
tears
I
that
think it's
sheet of paper.
pretty.
I mean, you should not disturb a writer at
No,
work,
no, no. That's
ideally.
not here. No,
But
that's not in this section. That happens after. In this one is when she goes and she serves him breakfast in bed. Essentially, that's
okay,
the
okay,
only
okay.
thing.
Oh,
That's
okay, okay, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. That's the moment where he's basically like where she's like,
Any ideas yet?
Lots of ideas. No good ones.
Well, something will come. It's just a matter of settling back into the habit of writing every day.
Yeah, that's all it is.
very
I
sarcastically.
I
says
hate
that.
that about people when they're like, "Oh, you just need to get into the habit of writing." I'm
Oh, so
like,
you
"Yeah, what?"
sympathize with
I
sympathize with
sympathize with
Jack?
him in that moment definitely. And when people are like, "अच्छा क्या चल रहा है?" I'm like, "पता चल जाएगा तुमको जब कुछ होगा." कहाँ
Well,
पता?
but he's waking up at 11:30 in the morning, like to
No,
do
he's
his
I
work.
mean, unlike me, who's a 24-year-old student, Jack is a 30-plus-year-old father.
Yeah, I think more than 30, but okay.
30 plus बोला मैंने.
Only more than 40 even, I feel. I don't know. How old is he?
Nicholson
It's
must have
never
been
told.
35 when
Okay.
this film was made.
Okay. Anyways, during this section, a lot of the so yeah, that sort of tension is there, and then we get that amazing shot of the maze. What's it called? Um,
What? We get that.
Oh, the
You're talking
miniature.
about that top
miniature.
shot,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, the
Acha,
Yeah,
the
okay,
top
yeah,
when
shot
yeah.
of the
the
miniature.
absolute
Yes.
the weird expression on his face is captured soon after he's wearing that dark green sweater, right?
Yes, the where he has the eyes shifted towards the ceiling or something, right?
Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah.
he's looking like totally gone at
Yes,
that
yes,
point.
yes, yes. Yeah. So I mean, all this section. What do you guys think of? Like, I think that this has one of the great, also the use of the Steadicam stuff with the tricycle, sort of
Yes, this is
riding, and
when
then the
he's going
carpet.
to the
Yeah,
corridor. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. The
yeah.
wooden floorings and the carpet cut tension, whatever is created through sort of shifting through it. So yeah, like, do you guys think this section is convincing? I suppose, or is it more sort of
I like the
not
build up, but it's too quick. That's
too
to
quick?
me the central problem of the film, that it doesn't actually chart his descent into madness.
Okay.
In even if he's relatively crazy to begin with,
Yeah.
there has to be some sort of, it can't be one fine day I became mad.
Yeah, it's over for a few days.
Yeah, but it's over a few days. I feel like cabin fever shouldn't
So you
set in.
wanted more of
I
sort of
want,
the
yeah,
madness
the drama, the
setting.
sort of sniping.
You just wanted
Even
him to be more
Wendy,
mean to Wendy.
I feel like Wendy again as a character is completely different from what she's in the book. In the book,
What is she in? What is she like in the book?
she's got a lot more agency. She's a lot more
She has
forthright.
agency in this, I'd argue.
Not
No,
really.
but I think here her
She pleads
agency,
with him a lot more. Over
yeah,
there,
is to serve
She's okay.
against the violence of, I think, Jack Torrance in the film.
Okay.
But in the book, I think what he's saying, Varun is saying, I get that because in the book she has got, yeah, much more stuff to do. She's
Okay.
got, yeah,
here she appears to be entirely in service of
in
the
service
two
of, yeah,
men's
yeah,
existence,
Jack's, yeah,
Danny
Sure.
and Jack. The
Okay.
book she does, like even here, like you see her going and checking the boiler
Hmm.
once, but that's it.
Yeah. I mean, she's doing the work there, right? As in you just wanted more of routine stuff there in
Yeah,
the film?
I
Okay.
felt that if that gets built in, then you get an idea of what their day looks like. He can't
Okay.
be getting up at 11:30 because he has certain responsibilities,
Hmm.
but we've not seen him carry out those responsibilities even once. So
Hmm.
is he a a shammer from day one. I don't think so. I think this is a man who wants to do a job properly for the next
Okay,
6 months.
so that's interesting because I don't think he is interested. Hmm.
Yeah, but he
In
needs to keep the job, no? For that, the hotel needs to stay
No,
standing.
no, no. So his wife, who has
Okay,
been
so
docile, sort of, with all this stuff, like
yeah,
she has, kept up with his physical abuse of the son. Essentially, tried to
yeah.
excuse that away, also, right? So
I
it's
mean,
this.
physical abuse is like he's grabbed the child once. We should also qualify that.
I mean, he dislocated his whatever. But the thing is, it's just a denial. Self
Yeah,
denial is also a big thing because he consistently tries to almost gaslight her into thinking that nothing happened, and it's in his imagination, like the
yeah.
child's imagination, which I think is like. Okay, I guess my perspective with someone like Jack is just like I think he's basically a no-gooder. Like I don't think he has
Okay.
anything to do with, I think
You don't believe he's redeemable basically at any
yeah,
point.
I don't think there's much of redeeming in shown also in the film, like with
Okay.
respect to Nicholson's performance or Kubrick's characterization, which I think is interesting. Like to me, it's another one of his foolish men essentially,
Right.
which who sort of try to use the system as it's
Hmm.
stacked in his favor here in this environment, and
Yeah.
then tries to get his wish done. But in this case, you get a happier ending.
Right.
But anyways, that's my point of view. But yeah, any other thoughts on this sort of
No, I
section?
like the scene where Danny is riding his bicycle in and out of corridors and he's
Mm.
looking into it because I mean this might be funny, but
Yeah.
when I'd actually watched The Shining, I had a bicycle, similar bicycle when I was a child, and
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I used to go to these places where our ancestral homes and all.
Mm-hmm.
I had this habit of usually kids do going here and there,
Yeah.
and elders usually would tell you ki, don't go. There's ghost and you might get
Mm-hmm.
lost. So when you watch the film,
Yeah.
Hmm.
Danny is going through these and he notices 237,
Yes.
or of course he
The
notices the
Brady
girls
sisters,
much later.
the sisters
Yeah,
also he sees, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sisters and all that scary stuff, and it almost like your childhood, those sort of scary little moments come back,
Yeah.
as in
Yeah.
oh wow, this happened. So
Yeah.
uh, I and then your mind starts to make up that maybe I also
Yeah.
had such encounters. So
Mm.
that to
Probably.
me, and these are the things actually, these are the reasons actually why I love The Shining so much, because
Okay.
now, of course, I'm much more informed. We know of the internet
Mm.
and we read a lot, and of course, we're reading the book and all discussing.
Yep.
But when I'd initially watched the film, it was just about that one, and I think I'd watched it in television. So it was just that one screening of the film, and then
Mm.
these moments are come and go. But
Yes. Yeah, there's a
they,
lot of flashes of imagery,
yeah,
right, in
yeah,
this. So yeah.
flashes, and they keep themselves imprinted on your memory.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
that's the
yeah,
whole trick only, right? I feel Arijit, like in the you glimpse the horror as opposed to absolutely sometimes see it.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. So and that's like to me, so this part of Danny going around inside the hotel, and that is also
Yeah.
I think the reason I'm so interested in Overlook Hotel, because
Mm.
for me, I would like to explore the Overlook Hotel from the perspective of Danny,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
with that innocence.
Sure.
Hmm.
Yeah,
With that
obviously that
curiosity of a child,
with that
right?
curiosity as well, exactly.
Mhm.
So yeah, so this one very interesting sequence is this part in like this chapter.
In this sort of section of the film
Yeah,
where I think a
section.
lot of
Yeah.
the disorientation is happening of
In
And
fact,
since
especially.
we don't know the stories, we are, I mean, like, even if I watch it now, I'm going to make
Mm.
up my own backstories of the
Of
Grady
course.
sisters or the
yeah.
237, or
Yeah.
maybe when he's playing with those miniature buses and all those stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
And
I think we should mention this. There's the Apollo mission
Yeah.
conspiracy
yeah,
thing happens
right.
here when the shot, like, it's, I think,
There's an
a
Apollo
high
shot,
angle
right?
shot of him playing, and very traditionally there's like the simultaneous thing where camera zooms out and pulls back both.
Hmm.
That's the quintessential, I think, thing that happens in The Shining a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a shot of him getting up and he's wearing a Apollo 11 or
Yeah.
Apollo 11, whatever you want to say, what, sweater, I think.
Yeah. Which gets
And
torn later. Yeah.
yeah, and this, I think a lot of people say, is Kubrick announcing to the world that he faked the Apollo
Moon
moon
landing.
landings,
But
which I think
NASA
is,
faked the moon landings, which he directed. There's a
which he
movie about this
directed,
as well.
yes. And there's something to do with like 237. He changed the room number from 217 to 237, and that's like the distance between like 237,000, some weird thing. Okay, it's
Something, yeah.
Conspiracy
conspiracy.
theorists will find anything anywhere.
Yes, it's an interesting detail though.
Yeah, it is.
Considering he did make 2001 around the same time, so it's a lot to
Yeah,
do with you know
1 year before the landings. He made it.
yes. So it's interesting on that account, but
I mean,
I
that
don't
used to be
think.
my running joke when First Man came out. They should have released promo material saying directed by Stanley Kubrick,
Oh, amazing, amazing.
or just
Anyways.
had a scene where Neil Armstrong meets Stanley Kubrick with Sacha Baron Cohen
Oh
playing
God.
Kubrick. But there is,
Uh,
yeah, for anybody who's interested, there is a movie about how the moon landings may have been faked. It stars
hmm.
Rupert Grint. I don't know who plays.
Oh, is this the Operation Avalanche or something? Which I don't know. I think
No,
it's
no,
one.
no.
Okay, something else then.
I'll just Google it
Search
quickly.
it. Anyways, no, I think one scene I did want to mention during this, again, it's separated from Jack,
Hmm.
is Wendy's interaction with the Rangers. I thought that was a very again another instance of showing how much she is caring for. I guess he wants distance, right? He's the one. He slags her off really badly in this section where he's basically like,
Wendy, let me explain something to you. Whenever you come in here and interrupt me, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me. And it will then take me time to get back to where I was. Understand?
Yeah?
Fine. And we're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Or whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
I like how he shoots Shelley Duvall in that scene. I think it like I found her very sympathetic in this particular section, I
Okay.
suppose. And when she's trying to communicate to the ranger, and she like it feels like she is seeking connection in some sorts from other people, which she's not getting from her husband. So I thought that was a very touching sequence. But this is all before the shit hits the fan, essentially.
The
Varun, did you find
movie, I
Yeah,
might be
the movie is
forgetting.
called
hmm,
Moonwalkers.
Moonwalkers? Okay.
Yeah,
Was there
it's
this one scene where Danny was talking to himself in the mirror and he was animating with his finger and he was talking to Tony? Was that
That's
it?
after he sees the Brady twins, where
Oh,
he's
after,
basically like,
after. Okay, okay,
I'm
okay.
scared," and then he says that, well, not he,
Right,
but like
right. Then they
Tony.
have that conversation, right?
Tony says that, remember what Mr. Halloran said. They're just like
Right,
pictures in a book, that
right,
they are
right.
not real.
Hmm.
So I think from this point onwards, Tony takes over Danny much more. I think
Mm-hmm.
Tony, because Danny sleeps, right? I think this point in time,
Yeah,
or
Yeah,
and
something like
Tony
that.
is the protective sort of.
Yeah,
I,
he's the
I,
protective. Yeah, because to me, Danny is essentially the few like good force of good. Essentially, he's the
yeah,
looking forward into the future
yeah,
because he's the generation, and that moron Jack is essentially the
yeah.
evil. So he,
No, and
in
also
that sense,
Danny is overtly friendly with a man of a different race,
race.
which
Yes.
again talks of a certain level of social progressiveness.
Yes, yes, yes.
You
And
know,
to me, then the story becomes more about Wendy then, because for me, it's Wendy
Hmm.
essentially transforming from someone who denies, well,
Yeah,
abuse and horror to becoming someone who realizes it.
yeah.
That's the character progression that is there for me, at least in it. Anyways,
From oblivious Ma to Durga Ma.
she's not Durgama.
I mean, she kind of stabs him. So it's
Yeah, anyways.
what do you want her to do? He's an axe murderer, literally.
Yeah. Anyways, no, but we go to the main section of the film where I've listed essentially 7 things happen. So this is like the most incident filled
Yeah.
section. This is Wednesday. And this happens, what, 51 minutes
Again,
in?
Neeraj Pandey
Oh,
reference.
shut up. Stop it.
You
Uh,
brought Balki into this.
yeah, okay, fine. But I was about to cut it.
You're not
Anyways,
cutting anything.
this is I think the central section of The Shining.
Right.
In any case, it's so here. Should I list the incidents that happen, or
Yeah,
what do
maybe.
you?
It's a good
Okay, so
idea.
Danny enters room 237 and is heard by quote unquote someone. Wendy thinks it's Jack, and that pushes him over the edge, essentially.
Right.
Uh, and I think that scene is very effective when she's consoling Jack,
Yeah.
and Danny walks in with his thumb in his mouth, I think, and he's
Mouth.
got
Yeah.
like
Bruises on his neck
bruises
and stuff. Yeah.
on his neck and everything. So yeah, and then the second thing that happens after that is Jack then goes to the gold room, gets his bourbon on the rocks from Lloyd, the best bartender in the world.
Harsh judging for bourbon drinking.
I didn't judge him. I've just
I'm
written it
judging.
down.
I'm judging.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
judging
okay.
everybody.
On the rocks from Lloyd, the best bartender in the world. Then he goes on about white man's burden being woman. I've put question mark, and more than anything else, responsibility of any kind. There's an awful lot of self justification going on in this section, I think. But anyways, Wendy's sudden yeah, this is the section I don't get. I think I get always flummoxed by what like Wendy then appears suddenly, and she is subsequently like asking Jack to go and check on room 237 because Danny says there's a woman in there, I think, or someone else in there. I never understand if this section is supposed to be like purely imagination from Jack's point of view, or is it like Wendy actually comes and says it to him? Like I've never like
Why
found
do you
an answer.
posit that that's imagination?
Because that's the point when he started to see Lloyd and everyone. So
Yeah, but that's also if you notice when he says, "I'd give my soul for a glass of
yes,
beer." Right?
yeah,
So he's literally sold his soul
Yeah, yeah,
at that
he's selling
yes,
moment.
it to the devil, sort of.
Right.
yes,
So as to
yeah,
say, yeah.
yeah,
So I don't think it's imagined. I think it
yeah,
happens.
yeah,
Or then because Jack is also now hallucinating, right? On some
yes,
level. So
yeah.
we should explain why he has those visions in room 237. Like
No,
first I
I
think
don't. I don't understand. So my thing is the question remains: what exactly is in room 237? Is it imaginary for all involved, or is it at least for Jack simply another manifestation of one of the things he desires? I don't know. I don't know what happens in room 37.
I
Except it
think
just
the
flips everything, and then that's the point after which he sort of loses it totally.
yeah.
I feel right. So it's because that is also intercut with spasms that he's having.
Hmm.
Danny is having essentially, and then it cuts to Halloran. So it's all
Right.
sort of linked. It's sort of getting interlinked with the two people there. So I'm not sure about the room 237. Whatever you guys think, is it made more clear in the book? I'm not sure.
I don't recall that well now
I
because
Okay.
it's
haven't
been
been
5 years since I
that
read the book.
yeah,
Okay.
uh,
Okay. Okay.
till that much, but I don't know. Maybe.
Okay. But yeah, this is the section of the film where I just don't have a definite, you know, I can't pin it down to anything. Even in my theory of what is happening, I can't pin
It's
it down.
also like you said, right? It's the most incident heavy section
Yeah,
of the
yeah, because
film.
after this,
So
then we got to Halloran at his house.
yeah, trying to
You know,
establish contact with
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
Then there's another pivotal scene with
Lawrences.
Wendy and Jack, right? And the red rum stuff happens. He sees red
Yeah,
rum for the first time. Danny does in
yeah.
his visions, and I think the scene between Jack and Wendy, whatever scenes they have together, I think work for me now much more than they did before. Is my point.
Right.
And then he goes, this is because in this section, then we also have him going back to the gold room, then and then again sort of selling his soul to Lloyd,
Yeah.
where he gets the drink for no money. And
Yep.
and then he's like, I'm a man who likes to know who's buying my
Who's buying it?
drinks.
Yeah.
And then Lloyd basically says that your money doesn't work here. And then he's like,
Yeah.
whatever you say, Lloyd. Like it's just like there's no effort on his part to really even
Yeah.
stand
To
by
be
his own
principled.
word.
Yeah.
I'm just like, whatever this institution wants from him, he'll do
He'll
essentially.
do.
Which
He
is
is that weak. He is that.
he is that weak.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we go to I think the bathroom with
Yeah.
the
With
with
Brady.
Brady, which I think is one of the most hateful
You called the
scenes.
most the scariest
Scary in the
scenes.
sense of just how
Yeah.
Creepy,
how
actually. Very
how
creepy.
polite they are in how they express their hatred towards not just women but like
Yeah.
race, and even just everything in that has such a
I mean, I just thought of it as an
implication.
average conversation between two American men at
Yeah,
a
which
MAGA
is
rally.
scary, I think.
At a MAGA rally.
Well, it's not a mark. Yeah, but whatever. But the thing is that it's scary, no? I don't know. I
It's
find
not.
I
I
found
mean, I don't know because I'm sort of completely. I've made my peace with the fact that there are people in this world who are like that,
yeah,
and that there's nothing to be done about them, right? How many are you going to sit and teach that, dude, come on, behave yourself?
yeah,
Because they genuinely believe they stand for the right cause.
yeah,
That's the problem with people like that, right? So
yeah.
to me, it's the film's most interesting sequence because for whatever reason, Kubrick says, okay, bathroom.
Why? What do you have a problem with the
Bathroom.
bathroom?
No, because to me, that's an interesting choice. I don't have a
Okay.
problem with it. To me, he uses because the bathroom is usually a place where you make small talk, and here
Yeah,
they
yeah.
are doing all sorts of making all sorts of tall
It's the
claims and
bargain. It's the main
yeah,
bargain that happens. That it's basically like you are the caretaker, right? That's the whole
yeah,
thing. You have
yeah.
always been
So
the caretaker.
I think to me, he uses the setting also particularly well. It's one of the
Hmm.
rare instances where I think all the elements of the film work. It's also the one
Hmm.
scene where I don't mind Nicholson's performance.
Oh, I think he's very good in this. But
Yeah, but
yeah.
otherwise, otherwise he's like a ham fucking sandwich. It's like, good heavens, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, he is hamming it a fair bit. But again, I think very much as a choice by Kubrick, not.
Whatever it may
Yeah,
be, to
yeah.
me it doesn't work because
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, that's
okay,
fine.
I'm not scared of this clown.
Yeah,
Off,
yeah, yeah.
go. Michael Keaton will take care of you.
Oh, okay, okay. Nice Batman reference. But okay. Anyways, you were saying why does the Nicholson performance work so much in this sequence?
I think it's because his desperation to get a drink
Hmm.
is finally meeting his desperation to be at some form of peace, which he is not currently.
Hmm.
And the two sort of collide.
Yeah.
And then this conversation happens,
Yeah.
and well, that also happens after a collision,
Yeah.
coincidentally,
Yeah.
when the dude drops whatever orange juice on him.
Yes.
Um,
No. Something avocado. I don't know what he says. Some
I
drink
don't
name. I
think
forgot.
Americans were avocado obsessed at that time.
They are in some. This is a fancy party, so it's
Yeah,
inspired by European flavors, which happen
maybe.
like this links directly to Eyes Wide Shut. If you want like a connection in terms
Okay,
of how it's short, like it's the gold room, right?
right.
Eyes Wide Shut has a whole section which is set in like this golden Christmas whatever thingy spirit and everything. Anyways, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
So yeah, to me then that becomes very palpable that this is
Mm,
okay. This is a man who is completely unaware of what his actual life is like. He's now totally committed to this alt universe of
yeah,
1920s
yeah,
roaring 20s America.
yeah. Well, like
That's
a
what I like.
traditional mindset almost, right? Like it gets to the
Yeah, an absolute hardcore conservative idea
yes,
of how the
yeah,
world should be run
yeah, yeah,
while
yeah.
sitting in a palatial hotel up in the mountains.
My girls, they didn't care for the Overlook at first. One of them actually stole a pack of matches and tried to burn it down. But I corrected them, sir. And when my wife tried to prevent me from doing my duty, I corrected her.
Arijit, you were saying something? Sorry.
No.
Okay.
I'm actually pretty interested in what you guys are discussing at this point
Yeah.
because yeah, I've never thought it from that perspective.
Okay.
Anyway.
No, no, but again, for me, a lot of the reasons why I'm thinking about it from this perspective is because I think the film didn't work for me in the first place, right? When I watched it, how many years back? So to me, a lot of the underpinning
40
sort
years ago
of,
Hmm.
when
I
it
don't
came out.
30 year, yeah. When I was, yeah, I watched it, uh, how anyways, sorry, no, no, no. I think I'm much more intrigued by the underpinnings of The Shining as opposed to sometimes the drama
The
itself. So I
text
think,
itself, yeah.
it's more for me on that level. But anyways, yeah, I do find this scene particularly disconcerting. Maybe it's also the Philip Stone performance
Yeah.
because I think like there's
He's all
that,
smiles.
yeah, and but like also but like very serious, like in the way he says something, right? Like it's
Hmm.
very direct. I'm like, how can you be this confident about something so horrific? It's that sort of sense. I mean, I know people can be, but it still
Right.
affects me.
You have lived
But
in Trump America, so yeah, you
I
do.
have, yeah. And we are anyways living in
This is the
that.
scene, right, where he is having the drink and Wendy comes and interrupts him and
No, that's
n-
earlier.
that's earlier. This is the scene when this is the after every, so after he goes into 237, he comes out, he goes to the quarters, then talks to Wendy, and then comes back to the
I
gold
did
room.
I did have one question
no,
about
but
the
Wendy
237
interrupts him
sequence.
once in Gold Room. That is later
That
in the book.
happens before 237. Like after that, he
Oh,
goes to
okay,
237.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you think at the 237 bit where Nicholson goes into 237 is just
It's a bit goofy now, I think, a little bit.
not just goofy? Do you think it's being edgy for the fuck of being edgy?
Not really. I don't know.
Because
I never
why
picture
the
him as.
repeated shots of a naked woman while he's withdrawing from a room?
At that point in time, it was fairly provocative, no?
That's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying. Is
yeah.
it provocative for the fuck of being provocative?
I do. So again, I think it also speaks to his what his perception of women is, which like that's
Okay.
also the reason why Wendy is not conventionally,
Attractive.
attractive.
Yeah.
Attractive
Because the
woman,
way
yeah,
she's
yeah.
way the attire she wears, and then
Yeah.
there's a very crass or crude comment made by Kubrick also in uh, while making the
I
film, where
mean,
it's
let's not
like
forget Kubrick was born in the 20s, so he was a
yeah,
man of his time as well.
no, but I mean, he said like there's something on on the lines that we need someone who the audience can also hate, like Wendy, like an actress
Hmm.
who the audience can hate, or who looks a bit mousy, or who looks sort of
Okay.
so something like that. So it was like we can't have Jane Fonda, so we'll have Shelley Duvall, who is
Jane Fonda would be too confident in this role.
yes, which I think would serve it badly
Yeah.
in my opinion. I think which is why I like Shelley Duvall. Her performance is so between submissive, which then like submissive more than anything else, and then it sort of gets progressively more. It's still very like there's a trepidation to her
Yeah.
always. I feel, which I think is suits the
Is
character well.
important. And
I
it's
think,
important, right? You don't
yeah.
want to confront the love of your life over such
Yeah,
little
and she
things.
says the way she says, like she consistently like tries to like be nice to him, and she's always saying like honey, hun, or whatever, like in a very like romantic way. Like it's
Yeah.
like she cares for him like deeply. It
Right.
feels like he, of course, doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't
Which
care.
so I think which comes across more in the scene which you're saying also. Like in that scene, it
Hmm.
feels like he is like a very conventional man, of course,
Yeah.
of that sort. So that's the vision he has even.
He has. Yeah.
But yeah, there's
Which is why the
always the
woman turns
yeah
into that older woman
yeah. I mean
and with
yeah
blotches.
yeah that
I mean,
that
there's two ways
image
of reading it. Whether he doesn't want to be hugging an old naked woman, or whether he doesn't
rotting.
want to be
No, it's not
hugging
the
a
old.
rotting
I think
corpse.
rotting more than anything
Yeah,
else.
I think I also thought rotting, but I mean, you can feed
You
into
can
his
take it.
misogyny and say like old.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
has a
yeah.
problem with old naked
I
women.
Yeah.
think the old, yeah, being old is the problem because with being rotting might not be an issue because
Hmm.
he's already
Can
given
we
up.
can we have
Given
that
away
as
so.
like a as an excerpt? Rotting is not an issue.
That's like a perverse fantasy. Being
Yeah.
rotting is not an issue, but
Yeah,
oh,
that
it
lady
is.
belonged in Pirates of the Caribbean. Like Rob Marshall. Please come and
God.
pick up your extra from the set of
No,
Kubrick's
but
Shining.
no, but that I think the other stuff is scarier to me than that scene. I think that scene probably is hedges closer to something like a Clockwork Orange's provocations as opposed
Okay,
to his other films.
right.
Anyways, but yeah, like I mean, I find the bathroom sequence between those two, as you said, very compelling. I think that's one of the best scenes of the film. But yeah, after that the escalation of violence happens. Essentially everything
Yeah,
goes to shit hits the fan properly.
yeah. Or
And
axe hits the door.
or axe hits the door, here's Johnny, right? That's the
Yeah,
8 a.m. Here's Johnny thing.
yeah.
There's two chapters here only. There's 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., which is interesting how again all his intertitles are very interesting in this film. They are very.
It's also the shortening of time, right? How much he's compressing it
I mean, it's
ultimately.
going to one day, right? After the
Yeah.
whole skipping between whatever things. But anyways,
Month,
eight.
then a couple of days, then 1 day,
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
of hours.
And then 8 a.m., which is where now it's all the. I don't know how much I want to like, delve deep into these sections because these are the sort of action sequences essentially of the film. But I think again the discovery of all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy is
Yeah.
a good scene. I think the Duval's performance works for me in this section particularly. I just think that whole thing where she's trying to convince herself still that
Yeah.
he's got some
You
uh
might have actually brought me around to appreciating her a little more.
okay.
I always thought she put in a lot of effort and Kubrick was fucking tooling around in the background
No,
and
I
taking
mean, to be
holy
very
initiative.
honest, a lot of the interviews that she's given have
Hmm.
consistently said that Kubrick wrangled that performance out of her.
Oh,
So a lot of because she wanted to play it more submissive, in fact, and
okay.
and Kubrick kind of made it made it more believable that she could sort of rebel again. So very dodgy. Whatever Shelley Duvall's treatment on this film is very dodgy as a
Yeah.
discussion in general because I think
And we don't subscribe to like poorly treating your colleagues.
yeah, and the 70s and 80s were particularly harsh in the way they sort of
Yeah.
had
The
directors
new
treating people on
Hollywood
this.
wave sort of
Yes,
gave
my
Hollywood.
dear new Hollywood wave, which I consistently champion, has some pitfalls. Yes.
I
The
mean, when
Kubrick
it
wasn't
has,
part of the new Hollywood as such, I
No,
guess.
no,
Like
he
he
wasn't.
was
he wasn't, but
always
he was an independent director who was flourishing under while
Yes,
New
yes.
Hollywood came about.
Yeah,
So, but you will always have good figures in the
yeah,
good uncle kind of ways that Robert Altman and Steven Spielberg were good people on to
yes.
the people on their sets. And you will have assholes also. Kubrick was one kind of asshole. Polanski was a whole different grade of asshole. Coppola
Diddleby.
may
yeah.
have
Or
been an
maybe we could go
asshole
to
now, as it
Hitchcock as
turns out.
well.
Hitchcock was a big
Hitchcock was
asshole,
a
right? So,
notorious asshole. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. So, like a lot of great filmmakers are unfortunately assholes,
Yeah.
which is a probably a discussion for another time, as
We'll call
opposed to
that
this
episode
time.
only assholes.
Assholes, nice. Or just violence. I don't know what else. Anyways, yeah, this section, I don't know what you guys can fill in. I don't know what to like detail because this is
I
a
don't
section
think there
where
is
everything
because yeah,
happens.
like you said, it is the propellant last bit of the film. You know, to me, unfortunately, the section ends very funnily
Hmm.
with that shot of the frozen Jack
Yeah,
Torrance.
I can
I'm
understand why
like,
you would
dude, what
laugh
the
at that.
fuck? Come
But that
on.
must be scary that time, no?
Yeah, but it's not.
To you, it's not.
Maybe a more grotesque expression on his face would have been better, but like this is just
Yeah, yeah, I can
he
understand.
looks.
No, I totally understand
I love
where
the
you're coming
chase, like
from.
how he's trying to
Oh, I really
chase
like the chase. Yeah, yeah,
Danny
yeah.
around, and there's no twist in the chase itself, which is
I
good.
like
Like
it's like
he
done
doesn't catch
smartly also,
him.
no? It's
He
the
doesn't.
whole
Yeah, the kid is quite cool. He's like,
yeah,
I'll cover up my tracks, and
yeah.
uh,
Which I think
he
the ending also kind of speaks to how incompetent Jack is.
Jack
Just
is.
like in general, just a total fuck up and a failure. Like he can't because
It's like
even Grady
have you seen
taunts
that bit
him.
of Varun Grover's stand up on Padmavat, which
No.
is कितने incompetent थे guards एक तोते को नहीं मार पाए, which is कितना incompetent है ये Jack एक बच्चे को नहीं पकड़ पाया.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's yeah, but that's the whole thing. I think Brady also says that.
Mr. Torrance, I see you can hardly have taken care of the business we discussed.
No need to rub it in, Mr. Grady. I'll deal with that situation as soon as I get out of here.
Will you indeed, Mr. Torrance? I wonder. I have my doubts. I and others have come to believe that your heart is not in this, that you haven't the belly for it.
He's quite useless actually.
Yeah,
Apart
except
from
in
killing
Crothers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Which I
Halloran.
mean, you can't even blame the guy because cause I think that scene is very effectively tense
Yeah,
because he
you
really
don't know where
gives you
he'll
the
come from.
time to
Yeah,
see him entering the place and then he just comes
and you've seen
suddenly.
where Nicholson has or Torrance
Is
has come to a stop.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and then
scoped
it
out the
just
place.
keeps on going. And I was like
Yeah,
expecting him to reach the second pillar and then him to come out and put the axe, but he like literally comes towards the end and then just
yeah,
and then again you get the Arijit, as you said, the flashing imagery of Danny screaming as
Yeah.
he's doing that. So yeah, all that stuff is interesting. But yeah, like there's nothing for me to read into in these scenes. Like this is when the psychological and the supernatural meet in many ways. Like it's like both of them collapse onto each other essentially.
Right.
But any other thoughts you guys have? Then we can swiftly move on to other stuff.
I wish we'd spent more time with Danny in the
Okay.
final bit of the film. He is
Okay.
the protagonist of the novel, by the way, for anyone
Yeah.
who's listening and is not aware.
Yeah.
He is obviously not the protagonist of the film because you can't have a 4-year-old,
Yes.
interacting so much with horror while trying to apparently tell him we are doing drama. Though I don't know at what point did he think
He's
they were
good
doing
though.
drama
Do you
when
like his performance the most
I
out
thought
of
he's
everyone?
Yeah,
fantastic.
I love that performance.
Because children are notoriously difficult to direct,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
right? And
He does both. He does the Tony voice also quite well, I think. Yeah.
is that him doing the voice?
Yep, I think
Okay,
so.
that's fantastic then.
And I think
But,
Kubrick was the nicest to the kid on the set. So
I mean, you kind of have to, right? Because then he didn't want the law on his ass.
yeah. No, and no.
Yeah,
To be
plus
honest,
if he actually wasn't nice, then it would have hampered the performance
in
because
general, he's
Yeah.
sympathetic towards children a lot because Diane Johnson, right? The co-writer was
Co-writer.
like, let's change the novel and end the thing by killing off the kid. Essentially, that's who do you kill off? Essentially, was the question
Yeah.
of when they were adapting it, and she was like, "Let's kill off the kid," because that's fairly sickening. Also, to like, especially to emphasize the horrors of the hotel and Jack, it kind of just. And he's like, "There's no way we can kill off the kid." Like he
I mean, it
literally
wouldn't
said
have
that.
passed the MPA's muster either. They
Yeah.
would not have let the movie go.
Yeah, it's weird how commercially friendly also Kubrick sometimes wants to be. He's had this tendency. He was, because I remember even Parts of Glory. If I think Varun, Arijit, you've seen Parts of Glory.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to spoil it unnecessarily. Anyways, the ending of that film is particularly bleak, and Kubrick thought that he could try and he was trying to do the Hollywood ending where people get saved essentially, as opposed to getting brutally shot. So yeah, like again, he was fairly commercially minded also in the sense of
Also,
his
you
film
don't
wanting to
do
do
that
well.
in mainstream
Yeah,
Hollywood
because he
filmmaking. You're not supposed to
spent
do
so
two
much
things.
money, he had to
Yes.
recover it. He
Yeah.
knew
Yeah,
that
yeah.
well.
Absolutely. I
He
mean,
was smart
Parts
on
of Glory
that.
Parts of Glory ke time pe to he was not even like a big
Yeah.
filmmaker at that point in
Yeah,
time,
it was
right?
Kirk
Parts of
Douglas
Glory,
who
though, I
gave him
think it
that
was
shot.
Kirk Douglas funded. I think
Kirk Douglas funded,
partially
and
or maybe.
and then I
then
think
Kirk
this
Douglas
came
gave him
after Barry
Spartacus.
Lyndon's quote unquote failure. So
Yeah.
I think this sort of plays into
And after this came Full Metal Jacket, right?
7 years
So-
after this, so like a long time back.
But what I was saying was in Hollywood or in mainstream storytelling of this kind,
Yeah.
there's two things you don't do, right? There's two kinds of living beings you don't kill. You don't kill domestic
Dogs.
animals.
Hmm.
No, domestic animals, straight up.
Okay.
Ghoda, dog. No.
Okay. I thought
You
it's
don't
just
kill
the
children.
dog rule. I thought it was more of a dog rule. Okay.
That's why anybody killing a dog on screen immediately makes them a villain, right? Or killing a horse. on
That's the
screen
whole
immediately-
thing. That if you kill the dog, you are basically lost your audience. That's the
Yeah.
rule. Yeah.
Really?
So and you don't
Yeah,
kill
that's the
children.
rule.
But in
People say
Terminator
that.
2, I always thought that,
But Terminator is not marketed towards like.
I guess it's more the R-rated. Terminator is R-rated, right?
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
But
maybe.
I
I'm
think so is
guessing.
Shining. So is Shining.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, yeah,
I
so
mean,
is
a
Shining.
70s director would have been 70s, 80s director would have been more mindful, unless
Yeah.
they were Samuel Fuller and
Yeah,
making
yeah.
that
Exploitation.
movie about that
When
rabid
they're
dog.
coming closer to exploitation, then of course this stuff it doesn't matter. I mean,
I mean, in a Tarantino would have said, yes, let's kill the child.
yeah.
Let's.
Yeah, yeah.
let's
There's a
Tarantino-
different point in time. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Though he
So
doesn't even kill the dog in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The dog kills everyone. That's a
Dog
different thing. Huh?
I mean, I loved that.
I love it.
Yes,
Same, I
okay.
love it. Yeah, I love it.
Amartya's
Anyways,
downvote this podcast at this moment.
what?
Once upon a time in Hollywood के बारे में कुछ positive बोल दिया किसी ने.
No, all three of us like it here. So
Yeah,
it's
I
not
do.
a
I quite
yeah.
enjoy it.
Anyways, yeah. So you had asked Varun about the why does Wendy start to see the thing, right?
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
does Wendy start to see supernatural? Because in this section, what's happening is he's intercutting Danny being chased by Jack, and essentially Wendy finding a way out of the Overlook.
yeah.
This Wendy only starts to see the supernatural after a murder happens in the Overlook, which I think is fascinating. Because I'm just like, does this place feed on blood.
No, doesn't she see the man in the costume
Nope.
giving a
After.
No,
blowjob?
that is later.
After.
That
After.
is when in the
After
stairs.
Halloran
Yeah.
dies is
Halloran
when
is
Wendy starts seeing everyone.
Oh, after
yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
dies, not after she sees his body.
Nope.
Okay.
No, she sees the body later, but after he dies is when she starts seeing everyone.
Okay.
Which I think is a fascinating thing where again it goes into the Overlook ka backstory, maybe. Like it's this whole thing where maybe the hotel feeds on blood in many
Right.
sense to have almost like to come to life in a way where, one murder happens, especially of a black character here. And then
Yeah.
it sort of gains its own life, which I thought was fascinating. Only came across to me on this watch. So yeah, I don't know if
Okay.
that has
Interesting.
any bearing on what you think, but yeah, that was the only thing I could think of. Um, and the other detail, which I know we're towards the end of the film, final tracking shot goes towards the photo frame, right, of him of
Yeah.
Jack essentially becoming a part of the Overlook
The
or
Overlook,
being
yeah.
always being a part of the Overlook. Photo's date is July the 4th.
July
Yep.
the 4th,
American
1921,
independence.
I
Yeah,
think.
but July the 4th is very interesting. Like I'm like that has to have been like a pointed thing about something,
Yeah.
right?
They
That's
are
his
talking about
independence
no, but they are
dying.
talking about no, but they're talking about how the white man has kind of always been free. That's one theory I
Ah,
was
interesting.
reading on Reddit last night
Hmm.
about how that the July the 4th ties into the white man
Sure.
exclusively and
Yeah.
the white man alone.
Okay.
Nobody else does it apply.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't notice July the 4th anytime before this, but yeah, this is the
That's
first
fine.
time I was like, oh,
And
July the 4th.
I had
Hmm.
not known that they party on July the 4th, but like my American flatmates and people in the building are like,
No,
yeah,
I've to been there, no. So itna
you
to I should
partied
know.
with them.
I've not partied with them, but okay.
No, you sat in your room and watched Born on 4th July.
No. Unfortunately or fortunately, I think no. But yeah, like that's our whatever. I don't know what is a recap of The Shining, I guess.
Yeah,
But hopefully with some insights, not just me recapping the
yeah,
film. But no, any other thoughts? Like Arijit, I know that you messaged me saying that you have your own story of The Shining. Like you've created your own.
Yeah, yeah. So those are the things. So it's about mostly about the Overlook Hotel, as in these
Sure.
instances.
Hmm.
For example, the man and the bear.
Yes.
I mean, what was their story? So it's
Hmm.
these are the kind of stories that I kept making inside my head because,
Hmm.
and that's the reason why Shining is a great film for me because
Sure.
essentially, obviously, the text and all that, the sense of being trapped
Hmm.
inside space, confined space, and
Hmm.
with whoever it is, I mean, loved ones is makes it obviously more horrific.
Yeah.
But for me, the interesting aspect of this film,
Hmm.
the Overlook in itself is a character, and the character is
yeah,
much, to me, much greater than maybe either Danny or Jack.
All the three in many
Yeah.
ways, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So
Uh,
whether it be the twins or the man
hmm.
with the bear or whatever is in
Yeah.
237, or for matter the woman that we were talking about who's
yeah,
rotting corpses. So and
Yes.
all these stories, because even if we go to some place and we go to this, I think last year we went to Shimla and there was this whole resort and
Hmm.
everyone was like, this resort's this floor has
Yeah.
this story because there was
yeah, yeah,
someone who committed suicide and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
then there are multiple stories. So
Yeah.
someone will tell you something and then you go other way and then other neighborhood is going to tell you some other story.
Yeah.
And hotels usually have these kind of thing. And when I had watched this film back, I think I was in school or something like
Hmm.
that. And
Mhm.
it gave plenty of fodder to my
yeah.
imaginary
Of course.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so and you keep
It's
extending these
yeah.
things.
Yeah. I think.
But you know, there's a whole genre of Hindi cinema of the 50s and 60s where thriller films somehow land up in Shimla.
Yeah,
Oh,
Like
yeah.
for some reason,
are these
like
haunt like the Ram Seva
yeah, yeah, yeah.
types?
No,
Okay.
not Ram
Okay.
Sampathas. I'm talking about like proper like Wo Kaun Thi, for instance. For
Okay.
no
Okay.
rhyme or reason, they're like,
Hill
like
setting is nice, no?
but
For
the movie is not
spookiness.
set in
Or
Shimla.
like Kashmir Ki Kali, sort of
Suddenly
that
they
sort
are
of
in
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shimla. I'm like, huh? Why?
How does this link to The Shining, Varun?
No, because he
I'm
talked about
kidding.
Shimla,
I
this
know. I know.
whole
I know.
thing of bringing in a mountain location just for the fuck of
Sure.
it,
Yeah,
just
and
like
also
Yeah.
because that separates, I sort of isolates you from,
isolates you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
from
in this
visual.
though, the snow is such a big thing because it's like
Yeah.
it's snowing almost entirely in the second act of like the second half of the film, which I think is
Holdovers.
yeah,
It
hold
reminded me of
wow,
how Holdovers
what a
look.
link. But yes, yeah, the snowy setting is such a big detriment to also like it causes greater isolation. Like they
Yeah.
can't communicate with other people, etc., etc. Right? So that's uh its own sense of horror. But no, Arijit, you were saying about the stories you can create, and I think that links also nicely to what Halloran says to Danny at one point, where he's basically like, it's like burnt toast. Every place has like these traces,
Right.
and like I think one of the good things I think about The Shining is that it sort of keeps those traces ambiguous as opposed to explaining,
Yeah.
where the trace of this horror comes from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which is why I think it activates your imagination, right? You're thinking why, where,
And
whatever has
also
happened.
Hmm.
the stories become like for like the stories of the twins are maybe different
Yes,
for you and Varun and for
of
me.
course.
So
Yeah.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
three of us we essentially watch a different film.
A different
Yes.
film.
I
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
in that way. And
Yeah.
also obviously the snow factor is, I mean, I love to write and I wake up pretty late in the day and then I
Yeah.
sit and write. But I can also imagine myself getting into, if I'm into such a hotel in a snowy
Yeah.
Yeah.
place, isolated.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely going to lose my mind, and
Yes.
I am definitely
I don't know.
corruptible.
Yes.
Uh,
Everyone is,
And
right. I think that's the whole
yeah,
point.
I mean,
I
and
mean,
I think that is where somehow the deep fears sort of get triggered because
sure.
yes, Jack is a worthless person. He is
Yeah.
susceptible to external evil powers. But
Yes.
had I been in his place, uh, I mean,
Would I have been better? Is the question.
I don't think so. I think I would have been corruptible as well, and I might, I don't know. Maybe I'm saying it right now, but
Hmm.
We'll
would I
see
have
when you're
committed
35
those
and have a
sins?
child and a wife, and we'll lock
Yeah.
you
So
up
I
over
mean,
there.
having a child and wife in itself is very,
It's just,
horrific
but I think
imagination.
that's the difference, though, Arijit. I think like if a man goes as a creative goes to a place like that and loses his mind, there's a totally different dynamic as opposed to when you are responsible of like other
Yeah.
people and you sort of
Mhm.
assume that role
Mhm.
and then go and then lose your mind. I think
Yeah.
there's a it's
Yeah,
the
there's a stark difference.
yeah, yeah. It's the whole thing where you start blaming your failures on others, right? I think
On
that's the big,
others. Yeah.
which I
Yeah,
think is
yeah.
the thing which makes the whole thing scary for me. Like it's just how much one is, and which is what something which relates to something like Memento for me. The self
Hmm.
deception is something that is key to that film for me. And in this
Right.
also, it's this whole thing where I will try my level best to justify my failures as not my failures.
Yeah.
And for that, I will find everything else around me
To be a problem.
to be a problem. So I think that's which is an emotion which can come to any of us. I think
Yeah.
it's just it's a which is why I think it's scary. I'm not
Hmm.
denying that. I know I've dumped on Jack a lot in this episode, but it's partially also
I think you
because
fear, yeah, because you fear the same thing could
of
happen to you.
course, especially it's like this probably applies more to a sort of masculine fear also, right? Because
Yeah.
it's directed specifically towards other genders, other races also in this case,
Hmm.
and well, yeah. So
I
yeah.
don't know, but how long do you guys think you'd be able to last by yourselves? Let's not burden other people
Oh,
with your thoughts.
I will last.
In the
I'm
Overlook
a
Hotel.
sucker for this type of place.
Same,
No,
exactly.
I love this kind of place, but I don't know. I
You
mean,
think
I
you'll
would be
just
like, they'd be
yeah.
like, why is there a party happening on opening day? And I'm like, yo, y'all are
uh
back. I'm so sad. I have to
yeah.
leave. I'm
No, I
going
think
to
I
a
would try, but yeah, but see, the thing is that you're also talking about time frame. Like, I know
Hmm.
I've stayed in these places for some times, but like, itna just being enforced to stay in this place as a caretaker is a bit of a different
Yeah,
You're
scenario.
not
I think
getting
it's a
paid
different.
also.
I have been
That's
on
also,
seaside resorts, but that
yeah,
is very different, and that also like for a week or maybe 10 days.
Go
yeah,
on
yeah.
a cruise of the Brahmaputra or something, and then we'll see if it
Can
works
Yeah,
out
survive.
for you.
maybe that would be.
Huh.
Yeah.
7, 8 days on the Brahmaputra, which is a river as big as any sea in the world.
Yeah. Then I think this scenario something might be like of Triangle of Sadness. Might be.
Oh God, yeah.
Dhruv is
uh,
immediately triggered.
No, I don't hate it. I just I have a different history with Ruben Östlund. I like his first film a lot. I don't love his other films that much. First film I
Force
saw, which
Majeure.
is Force Majeure. Yeah,
Force Majeure
uh,
is amazing. Yeah,
I
even I
love
feel
Force
like
Majeure.
his other films are not as good as Force
He's
Majeure.
gone. I don't know if I say
Yeah,
if I should say he's gone commercial, but he's just gone more expansive, which I think is a
yeah.
problem. I think there's such specificity, and actually, Force Majeure links quite well to The Shining, considering the resort and the couple. Actually, in
Yes,
that it's
yes.
in that it's like microaggressions as opposed to people running with an axe to kill each other. So it's all about gender roles and marriage in that film also. So if anyone's interested in like a offshoot of The Shining, I suppose, which is deeply uncomfortable. Also,
Yeah.
Force Majeure is your picks for the horror month, I suppose. No, but we can discuss parts of what Mr. Stephen King thinks of this version of The Shining, which also links to something like Doctor Sleep and Mike
Okay.
Flanagan, because I think
My
we've
question
kind
to
of talked
that though
about.
is should a writer's opinion be taken seriously?
No,
Because
I don't agree, but I'm
right,
just saying we should like. The other thing is that other thing I had written that we could discuss is the theories of The Shining, which we kind of have
hmm.
already.
He also
Is there any
Stephen King
particular
also
theory you
produced
guys
a mini
have?
series
Yeah, which
that
apparently is
was
really bad.
more faithful to the book. I mean, the film is ripe to be the adaptation is ripe to be done again
Yes.
after 40 years.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be one of those people to say, "Oh, Kubrick made a version, you don't need to make
Yeah,
another."
that's because you don't like it.
I mean, that doesn't matter, right? You've made a million versions of Shakespeare.
Mm. Okay. Anyway, I think it's
You
just this season of remakes and
Yeah,
readaptations that's so like
it's exhausting.
I don't want it to
adaptation should
be.
be fine, I think. It
Stephen
might be
King को
fun to like.
कितना adapt करेंगे? That's the other thing. I'm just like you've like absolutely. How much more money will he take? Like it's
Why
enough.
not
Adapt some other authors. Mike Flanagan has done his
adapt?
bit.
Yeah,
That's
adapt
it.
from my novel. Like, give me like $1
Oh
million.
God.
I don't care.
Yes, please give Varun
No,
everything.
but what was King's? I haven't read about it. I've heard
I think
about it.
King
What
just did
was King's principal
King and I
argument,
have the same problem.
which is
veers away
The
too much from the.
simplification of Jack Torrance.
okay.
Because I think he was also writing it from a personal or there was an
Yeah, he had a
Yeah,
autobiographical
because
major.
King
element to it,
was
right?
alcoholic when he
He
Yeah.
was an
was
alcoholic.
yeah, he
Yeah,
had a big alcohol problem because he writes
Yeah.
that in another book on writing.
on writing. Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
and
okay,
he
okay.
details about it and he
alcohol
says
and cocaine, both.
Yeah.
cocaine and also I think taking care of family
Yeah,
Okay.
because King was pretty much broke. I think he just had
yeah.
his breakout
Carrie
novel
had
Carrie.
become a success.
Yeah,
Okay.
but he
That
was
was
Brian De
still
Palma. Yeah, right. Yeah.
struggling to get into all
yeah.
that. So
No,
all
but
those things
also
I
I think
think.
the film ends very differently from the novel. So Arijit, you might want to mute me for this. But in the novel,
Yeah, the
Jack has
novel's ending sounds awful when I read it.
no, it's actually pretty brilliant because
Okay.
throughout the book, see because in that you have to reconcile the novel Jack with his actions.
I
Right, you're
understand. No,
trying
but
to
it still
reconcile the
sounds.
movie Jack to the actions of novel Jack.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
happens at the end is he has one brief moment of clarity.
yeah. And then he
And
decides to sacrifice himself, sort of
no,
like
he
that.
doesn't decide to sacrifice himself. Then the hotel takes over again.
Okay,
He
Hmm.
doesn't have a choice. He
okay.
loses to a more to a superior force,
Yeah,
as it were.
yeah. But then see, so the implication of a lot of what you are saying, and which is why I thought I guess again, I've not read the novel, but I know the
Yeah.
changes made to it. I think to me, it was basically like, so basically, you're kind of taking away responsibility from yourself and putting it to the supernatural forces,
Not
essentially.
really, because he has helped the supernatural forces, right? So he
Okay.
can never escape that responsibility.
Okay.
The fact is that this is still a man who tried until the very end. Unlike the film, where
Yeah.
he doesn't give a fuck from day one.
Which is what I like now, I
No,
think,
but
for some
I
reason.
like,
But yeah.
but the complication that the novel introduces is interesting.
Okay.
That this is a man who wants to do right by his family, who wants to do well by
But
his
I think
family.
that's a story that's been told. Like to me, the interesting thing about it is that how this man is so intent on pushing its family into a sort of situation where they are entering into a ready-made disaster of sorts. Like to me, it's like
Maybe.
what you do as a person sometimes to
Yeah.
essentially validate your responses as opposed to being conflicted about being good or bad, sort of like that.
Also,
I'm
in
just
the
looking at
novel,
it
the
from that point
hotel
of view.
gets destroyed because Jack has not been watching the boilers, which he was
Yes.
supposed to do.
Wendy watches them here, right? I think in the
No,
novel.
she only
In
checks on
the,
them once. That's the thing, right? The film
I
never
mean, you
bothers them to.
assume though, right? That
Maybe,
she,
yeah, somebody's been checking up on them.
yeah.
Maybe Danny, maybe Brady has been coming
Why
by
is
and,
Danny checking on the boilers? That's
why not?
just dangerous.
Not
Uh,
dangerous.
it is. What if he blows them up?
Why not?
Anyways, what do you mean? Why not?
बच्चे को करने
Anyway,
दो थोड़ा
okay.
धूमधाम.
Anyways, there's lots of theories on The Shining as we've told. I think moon landing is the one we have already discussed. Native American genocide is the one which I think always is the one which is most convincing to me
Okay,
or
interesting.
fascinating, just because it's so related to the violence of the hotel and the elevators ka blood especially has that how
Yeah.
many people have been killed inside this hotel, sort of that vibe to it. There's one really awful reading of the film, I think, and this is very few times I would like discourage people from believing it or doing something like this, but a total misreading of the film, I think, is the Wendy theory. The Wendy theory assumes Wendy as the villain, and essentially she's sort of gaslighting Jack and Danny. And I'm like, and apparently they found enough whatever reasons for this, and I was just like, wow, like that's like totally opposite.
Anything to blame women.
Huh, like it
Yeah.
feels really, really like very weird. Anyways, that's I guess the disadvantages sometimes you have of an open text that it can sort of, be read in that way. But anyways, Arijit, you can fill us in a little bit on Doctor Sleep
Should
and
we?
how that. Yeah, we can a little bit, not
Yeah.
much.
No, I think this is good. I mean, let's not go into Doctor Sleep now.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never so I've seen it
You
a
want
long
to
while
open
back.
the door of room 237.
Now, I would just
I
say
think
this that I Mike Flanagan, I think I mean now that I hear the principal argument of King in favor of the book
Yeah.
versus the film, I think Mike Flanagan he got that King's idea of why the initial novel was written,
Yeah.
and I think Doctor Sleep manages to do that well.
Huh.
Okay.
Because it's
So
honoring the book a fair bit. Like I don't think he's as like callous in disregarding stuff like
yeah, but
Kubrick is.
I mean, Flanagan has this very particular approach, sort of auteuristic. I don't know. I mean, if
Okay.
auteur is the right word for him,
Hmm.
maybe by now because he has done
Yeah,
a
he's got a
fair bit
pretty
of
good
shows.
reputation with
Yeah, but
monologues is his auteuristic stamp, I think now. And for which I mean he writes great monologues. There's no problem
great
with it.
monologue, and
Yeah.
I mean there are a fair bit of jump scare and all that he
He's good.
uses.
He's very good. I really like his
Yeah,
work in general. Yeah.
but in Doctor Sleep, I think he gets that core argument of which I mean this is about Dan. And then
Yeah.
Dan, yeah, and the
He's an
trauma that
alcoholic also, right?
Dan, yeah, he endured as a child, and then those
Yeah.
sort of comes back when he's coming back to Overlook again,
Yeah.
right? So
There's
I
more
think
about I think it's much more leaning into the supernatural also though, right?
it is, but it is also taking that abuse,
Yes. And
yeah,
that's the
and
core. I think
that's the
Ewan
core. So I
McGregor
think
is
that's where Flanagan has done a good job. But I
sure.
think let's
I
not
would. I
go.
want to rewatch that film because I watched it after not loving The Shining first time, and I didn't really care for Doctor Sleep also. But I think now that I
No, I
like The
remember
Shining, I'd
everyone
be
was like,
curious.
everyone went berserk. Like at least the Shining cult fans,
Yeah.
they were like, we don't need a sequel again.
Ah. Okay.
Right.
Got it. I mean, though that there's a lot of Kubrick heads. One of them is not with us, but he is a Kubrick
Even I
self-described
was
Kubrick head.
very
Yeah.
skeptical that do we really need,
Yeah.
and I mean, do we really need to
Probably
extend
don't
the
need
lore?
it, but like
Do
it's
we need to know
something.
all about it? But
Yeah.
Also,
later
I
when you
mean,
watch the
people
film, I
forget
actually
that
liked
the
it.
Yeah.
original work still belongs to King. So he's allowed to
Yeah.
write a sequel novel and somebody's allowed to adapt
No,
that.
yeah, but King, the original work, of course, belongs to King. But as we said, I think at the beginning of the episode, The Shining has such a big reputation, like as a horror
Yeah.
film. Like it's honest, I would be. It maybe is the most discussed horror film, at least if not.
Not Jaws?
I don't think so.
I was
Just
thinking
discussed. I
Exorcist
think Jaws
actually.
is most watched at that point in time, of course, but because it was a big blockbuster. But like the amount of discourse on The Shining is just a bit mental.
Yeah, I think
Like,
because The Shining also touches those the thing through we were discussing the other day, the thing, the intellectual and
yes.
intellectual chords, and I
Hmm.
mean being sort of an elevated horror
It's
in that
open also,
sense.
na. There's a lot of
Yeah.
Jaws. Jaws is not like an open
Jaws
text.
is
It's
like a very pulpy
yeah,
sort of.
it's
It's
Jaws
a
is
cheap
straight
pulp
entertainment.
paperback.
it's done brilliantly, but it is
Yeah.
like pulp paperback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The core is
that
just
and Alien to me are like absolutely muscular, like perfect, like genre filmmaking in some ways. Like it's like terrific stuff,
Hmm. And
start to
tough to
end.
do that
Very
too
tough to
early on.
do. Well, like that is the 70s ka thing, no? I think that's the
Yeah, they were willing
in
to. I mean, like,
contrast to something like Star Wars. I think that's
yeah,
the
no, and people were willing to take risks. They were willing to,
yeah,
give newbie directors a shot at.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
here's a
we
couple
should
of
have
million.
discussed Jaws this month sometime. Never mind. Next Halloween.
Next
Next
year,
Halloween.
50 years of Jaws, we'll
Oh
celebrate
wow,
that.
okay. You are the Spielberg person, so yes, we will.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
No new movie until 2026 though, which is
Well, you
sad.
won't watch anything.
I mean, no new movie. He's not making anything till 2026.
It's okay. He's made so much. Just rewatch his
But
stuff.
there's a long break
You know,
after
I
that.
had this very serious but stupid, I feel,
Hmm.
long argument with one of my friends who said that Spielberg is responsible for shark hunting all over the world because he made Jaws. So, and me being a Spielberg fan, I was also my arguments were stupid as well because I mean
I
I
mean,
was blind.
the primary argument is stupid, so you're allowed to
Yeah,
have
You are
yeah,
allowed to
because
have
I was
stupid.
blindsided by my fanboying of Spielberg, and then like we were like, it was all chaotic. So yeah.
कहाँ
No,
दफनाई
but
body?
huh?
कहाँ दफनाई body?
There's probably some response where I'm pretty sure there's been takes on Jaws which sympathize with the shark.
No, but like
Uh,
I sympathize with the shark. मैं
huh,
क्यों जा रहा
yeah,
था?
huh. It's like
I
why
mean,
are you doing
my whole thing was if that is the reason, then Moby Dick is the reason whales are hunted all over the world.
No, but
So I mean,
there are people who believe that Spielberg killed cinema, right? By making Jaws, he
yeah.
effectively killed off cinema.
I
yeah.
would if there was anything I would blame, then it's like I like Star Wars in patches, but I like why would you blame Jaws? Jaws is such a good
Because
film.
Jaws became a blockbuster, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
that
yeah.
became the aspiration for everybody releasing a movie in the summer. That I
If
want to make the
someone
next
can make
summer.
stuff like Jaws every time, then
And
please
Jaws
give me
also
that.
gave rise to this whole subgenre of shark exploitation. There would be,
Not just
I mean,
Yeah.
that, there were interviewers who felt it was unfair that in 4 films, Spielberg had grossed more than Hitchcock had grossed in 60 films. But you
How
can't.
does
I
yeah.
mean, how does Spielberg go and stand outside theaters and say don't buy tickets?
Yeah. I mean, that's a totally different sort of thing.
That's a
Yeah, but I think
ridiculous line of thinking.
Spielberg is too. I think Spielberg's populist sensibilities just don't sit well with people who think cinema is more intellectual than
It
emotional. I
has to
feel.
be more profound to people.
Yeah. I mean,
But
he has
think
sappy
Fablemans
tendencies, which I mean sometimes
Fablemans
don't
is
well.
immensely profound as a film.
I think
It is about
Fablemans is
growing.
great. I like apart from the section when it's in California, but like towards I
But
don't
that's
like
like
the
towards the
second
end.
section
I
of it.
love the opening 30 minutes of I love the opening 30 minutes of the
Yeah,
Fablemans because
yeah.
right from where
I have a
his
special
parents take him.
affection for the blow up, like the sequence where he's discovering
Yeah.
that his parents have an affair. Like I think that sequence was so well
His
Oh,
done.
mother
okay,
is having
okay,
an
okay,
affair.
okay.
His parents can't have
Mother,
an
sorry,
affair.
his mother is having an affair, and then yeah, but then
My
after that,
parents.
the film peaks for me there,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and then it's sort of for me, it's like
I
good.
mean, there is a great episode on Queen is Dead on Fablemans.
That's
Until David
your
Lynch walks
inaugural
in.
episode, right?
It was great.
David
podcast, man.
Lean, yeah. No, yes,
David
not
Lynch.
David Lean,
Lynch works and John Ford.
Lynch as John Ford, yeah,
Which is just completely like what
That
Lynch
was
is
crazy
huge.
good.
yeah, yeah. So good. Anyways, though
Yeah.
Spielberg episode, we'll do something on Jaws. I love
Yeah.
Jaws also. So, and he's a great filmmaker. I've always loved Spielberg more
Yeah, missteps
than
aside, everybody
yeah,
makes
yeah,
bad movies. Like
yeah, exactly. Except for
1941.
Stanley Kubrick.
I mean,
Stanley Kubrick.
he makes mistakes also.
His initial films are not good. Like initial as in Fear and
Fear and
Desire
Desire and
and
all that.
everything. Yeah, they are
I mean,
very
if I
rough.
What
were
was
to
that
go
heist
home and
film? I
say
like
I
that
watched,
heist
I
film.
Oh no,
watched
no,
The Killing.
initial film only. I think Fear and Desire and one more heist film
Yeah.
is great. The Killing,
The Killing, it's
which
amazing.
we will discuss I think next month for Noir,
Okay.
in some
I
capability.
mean, Tarantino denies it, but he just ripped
Oh,
off
that's a
stuff from
Reservoir
that
Dogs
film.
is totally from that.
Yeah, yeah,
That and
totally
City
ripped
on
off.
Fire, which is the Hong
Yeah,
Kong
City on Fire
film.
is definitely, but City on Fire, I think, also takes a lot of elements from The Killing.
The
Killing. The
Killing.
Killing is,
The
I
Killing
mean, the
and Rififi.
and Rafifi,
If
the
nobody had
French.
made a film, then Tarantino would have also not been able to make
Which is
it.
okay. Like he's repurposed them in general in ways which are much in which they stand out as his own works mostly, which I think is good. That's postmodernism in general. Like that's how you do
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
okay. Anyways,
Like
not
Steel.
not more on postmodernism. I think next series or the series of directors which we should explore is Jean-Luc Godard. Then, if we want to go into postmodernism,
Or
who
just
I
French
don't
cinema.
like in general, like his films, I just don't care for. Uh,
Godard and Renoir and
Renoir and
Melville, I
all are
think
very good. I just don't care for
Melville
Godard.
deserves an episode.
Melville is great. Noir is coming, so yeah,
The
why not?
Godard is good till 1967. I think
I've
till
heard there's a
Lashino.
break off point, right? It's basically
Yeah,
like he loses
Lashino,
his
I
mind.
think after
That
that it's
color film he did.
Contempt.
He's
This
done color films before
Contempt.
that also. Contempt is supposed to be good,
Contempt.
no?
Is it? I got
Contempt or
mixed.
Weekend? Which was the last film? I
Oh,
think
I
Weekend was
didn't.
the last film.
I don't
Fritz
like
Lang
Weekend
has the
at
role
all.
in Contempt. Okay,
Because I
he's
think
an
one of the
actor.
Weekend at the end of Weekend he writes Fin the Cinema
This
League end of
this
film,
film is
something like that.
trash. That's the Weekend ka thing I feel, and I'm just like I agree,
No, Godard
Jean-Luc.
used to call his like early phase films trash later
I
on.
know. I think he changed the political
Yeah, yeah,
sensibilities
totally,
quite a bit
totally.
after
Left to right?
But that's why
69.
that's when I
He
started
didn't go
hating
right.
his works.
He
Huh?
went totally left, I felt.
Acha, left to further left.
I
Yeah,
think he
yeah,
went
yeah.
like
Like as left as
That's
you
not
can.
as
switching. That's
left.
not switching sensibilities. That's just
No, but it's like
becoming
totally a
stupider.
disintegration of form. Like it totally, like, like his films consistently become more and more and more obscure. Anyways, why are we talking to Jean-Luc Godard when we have discussed The Shining? I don't know. But that's how we should have discussed Ready Player One.
Hmm.
That at least links to The Shining, right?
I've
Actually,
not watched
There's a
that.
homage
very two and a
sequence.
half sequence,
Yeah.
2.5 minute sequence. Very
Yeah, yeah,
nice.
yeah. Because I think there's a history, and just the last tidbit before we end, that Spielberg visited the Shining set,
Probably.
apparently, when they were
I
shooting
mean,
it.
him and Kubrick were pretty close, right?
They
They had
became
like
close later. At that point in time, Kubrick wanted to know what is this Spielberg guy doing, which is getting his movies this much money. I think that was the initial directive. But of course, later on, they became great friends. He made a movie essentially dedicated to Kubrick. So, it's.
AI, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Which I
Yeah.
think is lovely. We've discussed that also.
And what was that deal with Kubrick? Kubrick shot the ending of Blade Runner or something like that
Is
for
it?
Ridley
Oh
Scott.
no, they took
What
the
was that?
outtakes from The Shining's
Yeah.
exterior shots for the
Whatever
end
he
of
didn't use.
Okay.
Blade Runner. No, which is there in the original cut with the voiceover, which basically is the non-Ridley Scott ending. And his films have about 5, 6 endings. I don't know what they are about.
I'm
Yeah.
Sometimes.
already bracing myself for Gladiator 2
Apparently, it's
director's cut.
good. The reception's been decent.
Gladiator 2 director's cut. This cut is
Oh
2 hours
no,
and
no,
30 minutes or
no. Okay,
something.
okay. Anyways,
Like,
we shall
definitely go to see.
discuss that film also sometime on our podcast. But
I'm going to
anyways,
catch it in
yes,
theaters.
thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you, Arijit and Varun, for being here. It was
Thanks,
quite
thank you.
Always a pleasure.
much more civil discussion. I expected Varun
Marze
to
nahi tha
come.
na?
I was expecting Varun to at least come more like guns blazing with his shining attack. But it's okay. I think we all these most of our disagreements are generally civil. I feel like
Civil, yeah.
most of them.
Unless we have them with people in like YouTube comments.
Yes, which we have had a bad experience. But anyways, uh, we hope you liked this episode. We hope you liked all the episodes we did this month for Halloween. We did about 4, I think. But
We're
next
yet to
month we
release
have
the one we recorded.
it'll release tomorrow.
Cool.
But no, our plan for next month is Noir. As of now, let's see how much we progress with it. I'm not promising anything. I have a bunch of reviews to write, so I don't know when, and where, whatever. So we'll
Yeah.
see whatever to do next month. But yes, please follow Varun and Arijit on all the social platforms, of which all the descriptions will be in in our description for this episode. You can follow me at Terminal Cinema. You can follow our podcast at queenisdead.film podcast. The handle is dead, but we still promote it.
This was the
Sanjeet
thing.
is back for whoever is, whoever listens to this podcast because of him.
Can
He's
we
back.
just insert that bit from Jug Jug Jio, Papa Hadippa?
No. Sanjeet
He'll
is
be
back.
so
So
upset.
if anyone is looking forward to him coming back, please do listen to stay tuned for other episodes in which he might feature.
Yeah.
But yes, this is the end of our Halloween month. Thank you for listening to all our episodes and
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
A little slow tonight, isn't it?